Hi, all. Thanks for watching Making Healthcare Work for You, Different Perspectives and Empowering Solutions. I'm Stephanie Fields with Half a Voice today, and I am joined by my co-host, Dr. Apoorv Gupta. We're talking about our interview with the CEO and co-founder of Mend, which is a patient engagement software that really handles the full spectrum, from helping with billing to scheduling to actually facilitating the telemedicine visits for patients. But what we ended up spending most of our time on was talking about asynchronous visits and what the future could look like. And we really kind of went down a rabbit hole, because once you say, oh, we can have asynchronous visits where somebody provides information, the provider then at a later time gets back to you, you at a later time get back to them, it really, it can be a can of worms. So it was interesting to talk through that with Matt and find out what it looked like, because, as a patient, I started thinking, okay, well, anytime, like I already have messaging with my doctor. So now am I going to start getting billed, and are they going to have to provide some sort of disclosure that this could be a billable visit? And then is there something that needs to be more defined, a checkbox saying, hey, this is now moving into a billable visit, and then going into, provider burnout. Does this cause more or does it alleviate? Does this then become, if it's a billable time, does it become a time slot built into their schedule? Or is it something they're then expected to do on top of their additional times? And then the final point that I found to be super interesting was the video aspect. First of all, that it needs to be HIPAA compliant, which so many things weren't during the pandemic because of emergency usage. And two, that then it could be, first of all, it feels more billable, but two, it then could be something, if you can save it, that you then have the medical instruction, because when you're not feeling well, you're not thinking clearly. You're like, you get back home and you're like, oh crap, what did they say? I'm going to send a message, but wait, that could be billable. But if you have it in a video, you have it and it's there, you could replay it and be like, oh yeah, that's what Dr. Smith or whoever said. So I thought it was a really fascinating conversation. Neither of us had any idea that's what the road we were going to go down. But it was really interesting to play out how the future of asynchronous visits could look in the next frontier of medicine. Apoorv, what were your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I think you summarized it really well, so I won't try to rehash that, Stephanie. I think it's just to me, the entire summary of that experience would be just buckle in, because I think the future of telehealth is not going to be the same. Once technology is entered into the equation, which it has now clearly because of the pandemic, I think there's going to be a lot of potential applications, some of which we can't even predict in terms of the different ways in which we will be accessing the healthcare system. So that's what I find really fascinating. The other thing I'll just touch on briefly here in our recap is that the whole access issue, is really profound, and Matt started to get into it at the end, basically where he was talking about, ultimately, the central point of it is that telemedicine visits are more efficient. Ultimately, they only take 7 minutes, whereas the typical visit, in person might take more 15 minutes. So that could potentially create more capacity within the healthcare system. So that's something intriguing and something for us to follow. Does that ultimately mean that doctors can see more patients? And certainly from the consumer side, Matt's point was emphatic that from a consumer side, it's certainly opening up access, because now they can talk to doctors offline, asynchronously, from their homes, from their shelters, wherever they may need to be. And so the whole access game is really being opened up by this conversation. So fascinating conversation. Hope you enjoyed it. Please go back and check out the interview if you haven't already. And thank you.
Thank you all for watching. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care now. Bye-bye.